Good evening, everyone. We're here to announce the guilty verdict of DeAndre Wilson on 15 felony counts. That verdict was returned this afternoon. The defendant has been convicted after a jury trial that lasted approximately 6 weeks of the following: a narcotics conspiracy, Hobbs Act robbery, murder while engaged in a narcotics conspiracy, several firearm charges, several other conspiracy charges, and 2 charges regarding the damage and destroying of a vehicle by fire. These verdicts, which were obtained because of the hard work of the many men and women you see standing here with me this evening. The countless investigative hours to bring justice to the families of the victims and the survivors of these crimes should not be lost on any of us. Law enforcement efforts in this case were beyond tremendous, and the efforts of the entire prosecution team from my office cannot be overstated. That includes AUSA Michael Adler, Maeve Huggins, and Joe Trippi, along with April Kelly and others who provided support in and outside of the courtroom, has resulted in this very dangerous individual, now a convicted murderer, being removed from society. The team of prosecutors and law enforcement personnel, including the FBI, Buffalo Police Department, and the Erie County Sheriff's Department, put in the work to gather the facts, the evidence, and to apply the law which led to the convictions of this defendant. In addition, several other individuals have previously been convicted for their participation in this crime. They include Jarrell Cobbs and James Reed, among others. This conviction shows our community, our ability, and our resolve to ensure that justice is done for victims, their families, and the communities where these crimes are committed. For the families of the victims, we understand that there is nothing we can do to bring your loved ones back. But no, we did what we were able to do. That is to use the justice system to bring the full force of the law upon this and the other defendants, in the hope that their convictions for the crimes they've committed will allow you and your families to move forward, knowing justice has been served. Now I'm going to invite to the podium AUSA Michael Adler to give a little more facts on facts regarding the case.
As U.S. Attorney Ross said, it was a 6-week trial. There was a lot of evidence. In brief summary, on September 15th, 2019, during a drug deal that went bad at a residence on Roebling Avenue in the city of Buffalo, the defendant DeAndre Wilson pistol whipped and killed Demille Roman Audevred. He then proceeded to shoot and kill Miguel Anthony Valentin Colon and Nicole Marie Merced Ploud, who were parked in a van in the driveway of the house with their 3-year-old son. After that, later in the evening, Mr. Wilson took that van from the place that he had hidden it, brought it to a remote location, doused it with gasoline, doused the bodies of Miguel and Nicole with gasoline, and burnt it all. The boy, the 3-year-old boy, was taken from that van and abandoned on a patio on the west side of Buffalo. And all of this happened after just a mere 11 months after DeAndre Wilson had been released from prison from a conviction for second-degree murder in Erie County. As I said, there was a lot of evidence in this case that was presented. That was a brief summary. To provide more detail about the investigation, I believe that Michael Stansberry, the acting special agent in charge with the FBI, has some words.
Thank you. I just wanted to really say, not giving you a lot of details about the investigation, I think y'all know what happened here, the case and the presentation and getting this conviction, but really what hits home here is this wouldn't have been possible if not for the outstanding cooperation that this community has in law enforcement. And I want to personally thank Sheriff Garcia from the Erie County Sheriff's Office and Commissioner Gramaglia from the Buffalo Police Department about the work that their men and women did alongside our agents in bringing this individual to justice. I've been all over the United States. I've only been in Buffalo 3 weeks, and I can honestly tell you I've never seen the type of law enforcement cooperation in anywhere else in the country better than what I've seen right here in this short amount of time. And it's because of that that brought this individual to justice. I would also just like to thank United States Attorney Ross and her team, our prosecutors, for being very vigilant and immediately going after and pursuing this case federally and bringing this individual to justice. They brought justice not only to all the family members who are also victims of this crime, this horrific crime, but they brought justice to what is now a 6-year-old boy who had to watch both his parents murdered in front of him, and will forever remember that. So thank you for this effort. And what I just want to add is, when people sometimes ask, why do we need an FBI? This case right here is why we need an FBI. Not that the police department, the sheriff's department can't do it on their own, but we can come in and we can work with them together, and we can ensure a case like this is brought to justice and that it's solved, and it's not just for the family, but it's also for the people of Buffalo and the people of Western New York. So that, thank you.
Commissioner.
Thank you. I'd first like to start out by thanking the United States Attorney's Office and all of the assistant U.S. attorneys that prosecuted this case. This case started with Buffalo Police Patrol officers responding to a call for what a parent lost young boy. It culminated later in the day to responding to a burning car on the west side of Buffalo as well. Our initial homicide response under the supervision of Detective Sergeant Carl Lundeen with Detectives Stephanie, Casca, and Rooney worked this case and quickly discovered that this was going to require a larger effort that you see in front of you, and that cumulative effort of all the law enforcement experts here. This was an extensive investigation. The District Attorney's Office was involved from the onset, and turned into the United States Attorney's Office would be the prosecuting agency. I'd like to thank everybody that was here. We worked very hard every day as a group to work together and bring this to a conviction, and hopefully this young boy will get all of the help and the services that he needs. And I can only say that there's a special place in hell for somebody like this defendant today, and he should rot where he belongs. So thank you very much to the efforts of everybody up here, our homicide, our patrol, the FBI, the United States Attorney's Office, and the DA's office. Thank you very much.
Sheriff, do you want to?
Thank you very much. U.S. Attorney Trinity Ross, I want to congratulate you and your very talented prosecutors on this very successful prosecution. You have a great team in place, and it's an honor always to work alongside you. Thank you. I want to welcome Special Agent in Charge Michael Stansberry to Buffalo. He has an outstanding team with Assistant Special Agent in Charge Darren Cox, and Commissioner Joe Gramaglia. Goes without saying what a talented team you have. This goes to show that all of us working together, putting this case together, and then having the Erie County District Attorney's Office, or the U.S. Attorney's Office in this case, to prosecute such a difficult case and be successful, goes to show the talented pool of law enforcement agents that we have here. I just say God bless the souls of those that were murdered, and I hope this 3-year-old boy that's now probably 5, the best in life. And again, I am so proud to be Erie County Sheriff and work alongside such a talented team. Thank you.
We'll take questions if you have any. Yes.
Attorney Adler said that Mr. Wilson was released for 11 months, you said, prior to this incident happening. Was he just released because his sentence was up, or was it there's something else?
That, as far as we know, as far as the fact showed, is he was released to New York State parole, and then 11 months later committed these 3 murders.
Did he have any other parole violations that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Are you satisfied that you have all of the people involved in this case, that they have been brought to justice?
Yes, as I stated, tremendous amount of investigative work went into this case, multiple hundreds of hours. We are pretty sure we have gotten the actors who committed this horrific crime, and we have convicted all of them.
Do you have any idea what the expected sentencing could be and when we could expect that?
There are a lot of crimes that the defendant was convicted of. Some carry different mandatory minimums. The maximum is life, and that's the mandatory minimums. When you work them all out, it's probably going to be somewhere around 40 years, but it's a little convoluted. But he can serve a maximum of life.
You don't know when we would possibly be able to hear that?
When the sentencing currently scheduled in March, I believe it's March 23rd at 2 p.m. in front of Judge Wolford.
And I know early on in this case, the death penalty was thrown out. Is that still a consideration, or if it's not, why is it not a consideration?
It is not a consideration. There's a process that I don't know if you want to speak to, but
There's a process that we went through as we do in all death penalty eligible cases, and this case was not deemed to be a case that would go forward with death penalty on the table.
And Attorney Ross, have you spoken with the family of Noel Ben? Have you heard from them today? What is their reaction, if you could share that with us?
I personally have not spoken to them, but my trial team have, so if you guys want to answer that question, Maeve, Joe, Michael, Maeve.
The entire trial team met with victims' families that came in for portions of the trial and saw the verdict today. We spent some time with them today, as we have throughout different portions of the trial, but we were able to meet with them. And obviously, the condolences and the sympathy and sentiment here among the group is that we are glad that we were able to help deliver justice.
Could you provide any current status update on the 6-year-old child?
No.
No, not at this time.
Was there any impact on the drug operations that these people were involved with? Was there a reduction because they're now behind bars or charged or arrested, or not really?
Well, what I can say is that that drug organization has been dismantled, and that they were just trafficking enormous amounts, quantities of drugs, multiple different types of drugs, heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, marijuana, that it no longer exists.
Have they implicated maybe other operations?
We can't speak to that. Yeah.
How complicated is an investigation like this when we see, a half page here of convictions? I mean, how challenging is that to go through?
Well, I know you're asking the question because you already know the answer. It's very challenging. This was a lengthy investigation, multifaceted, with many different moving components, from arson of the vehicle to murder to drug conspiracy. And because of the work of the law enforcement officers and the prosecutors here at my office, we were able to gather the evidence, marshal that evidence, sort through the evidence, and pull out the evidence that we needed to get where we are today, and that is to the conviction of a very dangerous individual who, as AUSA Adler said, less than a year after being released from prison, is committing these type of crimes. So it's very complicated, but the hard work of this team, the unrelenting dedication they had to justice, has been proven today in 15 felony convictions of some very, very serious charges.
How important was the testimony of the other two people who pleaded guilty already in this particular case in terms of getting that conviction?
Come on, Drew.
Hi. It was just part of the proof. As we argued during the trial, the investigative efforts of the Buffalo Police Department and the FBI and the other people involved in the investigation should have resulted in a guilty verdict, even if we had never had those two individuals testify. But as they were involved with DeAndre Wilson during parts of the facts that culminated in these murders, I'm sure that the jury appreciated having the whole story, not just the parts that law enforcement was able to present by their investigation. So it's all part of the puzzle.
Were there any charges that Mr. Wilson was not convicted of?
There were 2 counts. One we actually conceded, and during Mr. Trippi's closing argument, actually advised the jury to find not guilty. That was a Hobbs Act conspiracy. He was instead convicted of the Hobbs Act robbery, and then a maintaining a premises for the purposes of drug trafficking. Those were the only 2 counts.
Okay, thank you.